Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2009 comic book cartoon toy adaptation film G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. Now, this is a film that I get why fans, like diehard fans of G.I. Joe, were less than enthusiastic about this one or have issues with it, but I'm not what you would call a diehard fan of G.I. Joe. I am very much a casual fan of this franchise and of these characters. So I had some fun with this. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I think this is some underrated film or a gem or anything. No, I think it definitely is deserving of some of the uh, uh, poor or bad reviews that it's gotten over the years. But I've seen worse. I remember having some fun with this when I saw it in the theater when it came out with my dad. So I was expecting maybe it was gonna age like milk, or it wasn't gonna be fun, or it's just gonna be pretty cringe or bad. But it really wasn't. It was just kind of generic, kind of forgettable at points. But there's some fun action, and there's a fun comic book style and flair to it. It's one of those movies where, yeah, it's not gonna win any awards, but for the most part, it was pretty entertaining. But anyway, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts of G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra, I would like to give a special shout out to Phil for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. Link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra is directed by Stephen Sommers. And Stephen Sommers is a very solid director for the most part. I mean, if you look at his filmography, there's a lot of really solid, fun films. Deep Rising, The Mummy Returns. Yeah, Van Helsing isn't that great, but it's still watchable and I can still have some fun with it. But I would say this is around the time when he was starting to tail off as a director. Because after this, honestly, I don't think he did anything else until Odd Thomas, and that was it. Um, this was like I think this was his last film that he did that got like a major theatrical release and it was like a hit, which I'm kind of surprised by because of the fact that G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra actually made some money. But I guess maybe he just didn't have the best experience, or maybe people in the industry weren't that impressed by his efforts here. I will say that this is some of his weaker work as a director because a lot of this movie is just CGI boats and ships and all of this other stuff. And there's only so much a director can do with that. I think when it comes to the more over the top comic book style action sequences, Summers was right at home and did some strong direction when it comes to his camera work, the angles, the zooms, the pans, the different techniques that he was using. So this film is at its best when it's over the top and campy and a B movie when it comes to its action or its visuals. But when it comes to stuff that's trying to be a little bit more serious, a little bit more straightforward, like some of the flashback scenes involving Duke and the Baroness and other stuff, not so much. So the direction to me is honestly a bit of a mixed bag for Stephen Sommers. Like there are some moments where I think he does a good job with the direction, but there's other moments where it looks like maybe the studio kind of handcuffed him and was like, "Hey, make it more like Michael Bay. Make it more like Bay's Transformers. That's what people want. That's what people want to see." And it kind of looked like he was handcuffed and or was given directions and he was like, "All right, I guess I got to do this way. Otherwise I'm going to get fired. So I guess I just have to shoot this film the way that they want me to." So yeah, the direction, it's not incredible, but it's not entirely unimpressive either. There's some nice looking shots here and there, and there's some good spectacle to it. But I will admit, honestly, John M. Chu's direction in the sequel was considerably better. And I think a lot of it is this is Stephen Sommers on autopilot. I don't even know if he really wanted to do this. I think it was just, hey, uh, you got a job for me? All right, I'll direct the GI Joe movie. Sure, why not? It's a good paycheck. Definitely a paycheck film for this director. Now, the screenplay by Stuart Beattie, David Elliott, and Paul Lovett. It's not a script that I love, but there are some things about it that I don't mind. I like the dynamic between the Joes. I think once you get to the point where Duke and Ripcord, they join the team, there's a lot of fun with that to be had with that in terms of them training or the way that they're interacting with the other Joes like Snake Eyes and Scarlet and Heavy Duty. Uh, so I think and Hawk. So I think there's a lot about that that's rather enjoyable. I think the banter, the dialogue between Duke and Ripcord is actually fun. I think the two of them actually have some genuinely memorable and funny moments together. The whole idea of the nano missiles I thought was also pretty cool. I like how Cobra Commander is using like genetics and messing with people and turning people into Neo Vipers. I don't really like what they're doing with Destro, and it starts with a very awkward prologue that's like establishing the lineage of Destro, and it looks like something out of like the Three Musketeers. It's just a weird way to open the movie. And the stuff they do with the Baroness, I would have been okay with it if at the end she still decided to go and be with her brother and Destro. But they did this whole wishy-washy bullshit where it's like, oh, she's a bad guy, but not really, and I didn't like that at all. But I appreciate them trying to add some depth to some of these characters and try to add an interesting sort of connection between Duke and the Baroness, but it creates some effective drama at points, but by having her just be this kind of good guy at the end, that's just really lame. And so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of like moments that are just kind of lame. But then there's fun stuff. Like I like the stuff with Zartan. I like the idea of him replacing the president. I love anything with Storm Shadow. Should have been in it even more, along with Snake Eyes. Like the Snake Eyes Storm Shadow fights are definitely some of the biggest highlights of this film. And I love the tech. I think there's a lot of cool tech in this, whether it's the Joes or the Cobra tech. I don't know why they're doing this whole like the Cobra isn't Cobra yet. That was stupid. I don't know why a lot of these movies, especially around this time, did that. Like, oh, Cobra before Cobra. Who the hell wants to see that? Just have them be Cobra already. Why are we doing proto Cobra? And while there is some fun to be had with some of the action and the tech, like the mech suits and on the plasma guns and all of this other stuff, there are some moments involving the action, especially in the finale at the secret base that's under the ice. They get really repetitive and kind of dull and run together and get boring, despite all of the explosions and all of the CGI carnage. It just gets to the point where it kind of runs together. It just seems like it's more of the same, repeated ad nauseum again and again. And While I also kind of appreciate what they're doing with Cobra Commander, I kind of don't. Like, why do we need to have a direct connection with Duke in terms of it being his friend who got disfigured and somehow survived an explosion and is now some evil mad scientist? And the stuff with Destro, like, okay, he's a weapons guy. All right, fine. But he doesn't become Destro until the end of the movie. And Cobra Commander doesn't become Cobra Commander until the end of the movie. And I will definitely say this. The reveal of Cobra Commander is fucking laughable. What was that design? Whoever came up with that design should have been fired. That shit looked fucking silly. I remember laughing my ass off at that reveal in the theater. And I still laughed my ass off after watching this again after all these years. It was like, I am the Cobra Commander. What? What? No, you're not. The hell is this shit? Get that shit off your face. So, yeah, I mean, the plot is very generic. It's another story about a bunch of evil doers who get a hold of a nuke and want to use it, or a bunch of nukes and want to use them, but instead of it being just nuclear weapons, they're nano nukes, and it's up to our team of heroes to stop them. But I will give the script some credit. I mean, they actually do follow through with the president getting replaced by Zartan. And so it's not one of those things where, oh, the Joes won the battle, they won they won the war already. They might have won this battle, but they definitely didn't win the war. So it still leaves things in a good spot for a sequel. And like I said, I actually don't mind Duke, although there are some moments where Channing Tatum's line delivery is really bad, especially near the end. But I don't still don't mind the way they wrote the character. And I like Riptide or Ripcord. I keep trying to call him. I think that's a Transformer. Isn't there a Transformer called Riptide? I liked Ripcord, and I mean, it establishes the Joes, it establishes Cobra, but does it in a way that's not really the most satisfying. But yeah, the plot is generic. But and then there's some pacing problems at points because of this weird way that they frame the flashbacks with Baroness and with Duke or with Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes. But those moments still kind of added a little bit of extra intrigue and a little bit of depth. So I did appreciate that. But yeah, after a certain point, the laser gun battles and the sword fights and all this other stuff and the gunplay starts to get a bit repetitive and old, especially by the time you get to the climax at the Arctic base. But due to the characters and to some of the action and due to the genuinely exciting and fun like first half of the movie and other bits like the mecha suit stuff, like it's a time waster for me. It's all right. It's okay. The script could have been a lot better though. And I understand why a lot of fans were disappointed by this screenplay, especially when it comes to how they handled certain characters. Oh, and speaking of dumb looking masks, like what the hell is up with Snake Eyes having dick sucking lips? I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense. Snake Eyes has never had lips on his mask, but for some reason they decided to give him lips and it looked fucking stupid. Storm Shadow though looked great. Nothing wrong with that design. And Destro was good too, but it's not Destro until like the last half of the movie. And even then he's only Destro for like maybe a minute. So yeah, the screenplay, it could have used some work. I think it really would have helped if you had somebody who was involved with G.I. Joe creatively actually be involved with the script for the movie. The cast the cast is all right. Channing Tatum, he did this because he was contractually obligated to. I guess the producer, Lorenzo di Bonaventura, was originally interested in casting Mark Wahlberg for the role. Um, I think it would just been more of the same, to be honest. Because Duke is just, he's just a generic character anyway. Just a generic army man. He's been that way all the way back to the cartoon. And so there's not a ton you can do with this character. But I feel that Channing did an all right job. He was believable when it comes to physical stuff. And I think it's his chemistry with Marlon Wayans that made the character work for me. When he's just by himself, not so much. Um, and yeah, there were definitely some moments, especially near the end, where his acting was pretty bad. But I could tell that he had some fun with some of the stuff. And his back and forth with Marlon Wayans was really fun. Dennis Quaid, I love him. Huge Dennis Quaid fan. You could tell he was having fun with this role too. I wish he had more to do. I wish he had more scenes where he could actually prove himself in battle and combat, but he was a good casting choice to play Hawk. Uh, Adewale Akinnuoye Agbaje as heavy duty. I didn't mind him either. Um, I felt that he had some good chemistry with the rest of the cast as what the rest of the Joes. Channing Tatum, Marlon Wayans, Ray Park, Saïd Taghmaoui. Um, I'm honestly kind of surprised why he wasn't involved in the sequel, but it is what it is. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty decent performance. I liked him in it. Um, Rachel Nichols as Scarlet. I liked her as well. I thought she had a good charm about her. Um, Definitely had some fire. I liked her whole bit of I don't know if I should say business, but I liked the whole way that she interacted with Marlon Wayans. I felt they made a nice couple, and I liked how she was not only nice to look at, but also seemed to hold her own when it comes to the action. Marlon Wayans, I had a lot of fun with him as Ripcord. It was honestly one of my favorite roles that he's done. He was really fun. He had some fun lines. It was cool to see Marlon Wayans be in a movie like this with a budget and be a hero. Ray Park, Snake Eyes. He doesn't have to say anything because that's not Snake Eyes' thing. His actions speak louder than his words, and Ray Park was so good in the role in terms of the little subtle mannerisms of Snake Eyes that provide a bit of Snake Eyes' humor, and just so capable and so strong when it comes to the fight scenes. Um, I also was, all right with Saïd Taghmaoui as Breaker, but in all honesty, I wish that Brendan Fraser was in it more. Originally, he was rumored to play Gung Ho, but then he just played like a random character named Sergeant Stone because he wanted to be in something with Stephen Sommers again. And when he shows up in his cameo, he's it's a lot of fun to watch, which is honestly why I'm like, man, why wasn't Brendan in the movie more? Have Brendan be the guy who's the tech hacker dude who's chewing gum and doing stuff. Like, why does it have to be this other actor who's just not really the best in this, honestly, when it comes to his performance? Definitely doesn't have as much charisma as the rest of the cast of Joes. Uh, the Mars cast, Cobra, Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Cobra Commander, Rex. I mean, this isn't the kind of casting that I would do, but I think he pulled it off. he pulled it off rather well in terms of playing the different various forms of Cobra Commander. You know, Rex, the Doctor, and then Cobra Commander. Um, he was a good sport when it comes to wearing all the makeup. Did a good job with the voice. Like I felt he did honestly a really solid job playing this character. Did a much better job than Christopher Eccleston as McCullen, with his just really fake as hell sounding Scottish accent. And that performance was hammy. And you could argue that in some ways so was Joseph Gordon-Levitt's, but this was hammy in a way where it was just there was too much salt. It was just too much ham. Like I felt Joseph Gordon-Levitt's performance was the right amount of ham. Christopher Eccleston's performance was too much ham. It was an overdose of ham. Sienna Miller as the Baroness, she was hot, and I didn't mind her performance overall. She did a pretty good job when it comes to uh, all of the stuff involving the action and so on and so forth. But it's not what I would say like a incredible role, but it was fine. I want to say I would say she was on the same level as the actress Rachel Nichols, who well I think that's who it was, right? Yeah, Rachel Nichols who played Scarlet. Lee Byung-hun as Storm Shadow didn't really have that many lines, which is good because his acting isn't the best in terms of his line delivery. But man, when it comes to the physical stuff, he excelled at it, and he was just in prime physical shape and condition here, and definitely a fearsome rival for Snake Eyes. Arnold Vosloo, he was fun as Zartan. He always does a good job playing these kind of characters. Like he was right at home playing a Zartan. I felt that was just really good casting. Kevin J. O'Connor has a cameo as Dr. Mindbender, but he's only in it for like one scene. You also have Jonathan Pryce, who plays the president. I felt he did a pretty solid job playing the president. And you got this guy named Gregory Fatosi, who plays the Baron. And he was pretty bad. But yeah, the cast, I mean, it's not the most phenomenal, amazing, spectacular cast out there, but it's good enough for the G.I. Joe movie. Now, the cinematography by Mitchell Admonson, it's just average. There's some shots that look nice, like the shots in Paris or some of the shots in Egypt, but a lot of the other shots that are just mostly done with a green screen or in tight cramped spaces don't really look that impressive, don't really look that great. The editing by Bob Ducasse and Jim May, it's not what I would consider to be a magnificent job well done, but there are some moments that I felt the editing was pretty tight, pretty solid, especially when it comes to the fights involving Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes and some of the other bigger action sequences in the movie. But then there's other moments of the editing was a bit choppy. So that's why I don't consider the editing to be like a total success overall, but it's definitely not a total failure either. The score by Alan Silvestri, not one of my favorite scores of his, but I'd rather listen to that than the Black Eyed Peas. I don't know why that song was in the soundtrack at the end credits. It was only there because it was a successful song. That boom, 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 or whatever that song was. I think it was like the last song that the Black Eyed Peas did that honestly had any sort of success on the charts. And there was some other stuff. There was like a weird cover of another like classic song where they used like a remix version of it that I was not super big on either in the training sequence, and some rap song earlier on. Like the original songs they used for the soundtrack kind of sucked. But the score was fine. It fit the film. It fit the whole military feel and vibe of it. Although at points it kind of sounded generic. But, Silvestri, he's a accomplished composer for the most part. Even though it's not like his A game, it's still composed effectively and efficiently enough overall. And like it's like 118 minutes, and at points it does kind of drag a little bit, especially after the first 45 minutes or so. Like the first 45 minutes I felt were honestly pretty tightly paced and fun and rather enjoyable. And then after that it kind of started to lose some steam, picked it up a little bit, but then really started to tail off during this long finale at the underwater base that just felt like it went on forever. Um, and the only thing that really sparked my interest or got my adrenaline up is Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes fighting. But yeah, I mean, this is no classic by any means, but if you like the Michael Bay Transformers movies, like there is some fun to be had with this for the spectacle, for some of the action, for some of the banter and the back and forth with the characters but it definitely could have been a lot better. It really could have been. Especially when you watch some of the better episodes of the cartoon or if you read the comics. The comics in particular are great. And it definitely is a bit of a missed opportunity that we don't have a film that is as good and as well written as those comics were. But anyway, that's my thoughts on G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.